when you talk about raster analytics, the steps of using it are very simple. You're basically extending the power of Pro with raster models and function chains and so on, and having it parallelized on the server. And you'll just attach your data sets to the server. You'll invoke the analysis, and then you view the results of the analysis. It's as straightforward as that. So I'd like to introduce Vinay from the Raster team to walk us through how powerful raster analysis could be. Vinay?
Thanks, Jay. I'm going to be using a problem set that's defined by the Chesapeake Conservancy Group, wherein I need to create a high-resolution land cover map. Now, this typically takes a long time to process using the traditional desktop-based image processing approach. So I'm going to talk about how can we leverage raster analytics in 10.5, leverage the enterprise, and solve these kinds of problems. Firstly, Pro, it comes with a slew of raster functions out of the box, image processing algorithms which let you process, analyze, and visualize your imagery. I've created this custom function chain with a bunch of functions. Each function has an associated set of parameters, data sets associated with it. I've then saved it out as a customized function chain, which essentially creates my land cover map. Now, as I navigate around this map, I zoom and pan around this map, my imagery is processed on the fly at the scale, resolution, and extent of my view. This is useful and sufficient in most cases. Our problem set, though, as I defined earlier on, requires me to scale this processing to the level of the county or scale it to the level of the state and create a persisted data set. That's essentially creating a couple billion processing, a couple billion pixels. Pro is an integrated application with the enterprise. So just like how I ran processing using the desktop, I could leverage my WebGIS and run Raster Analytics. So I've just kicked off Raster Analytics behind the scenes. And while this goes on, I'll just switch to slides. This should give you a conceptual overview of what's really happening behind the scenes. I have a set of input WebGIS layers. I use ArcGIS Pro to define, design, or author my raster models, which are then submitted to the enterprise using either ArcGIS Pro, portal user experience, or developers can do the same using the REST API. Raster Analytics at 10.5 then distributes my processing to the available cluster of machines. My input data sets, they reside natively as files on disk or within the distributed raster data store. My results are then written directly back into the enterprise. It's persisted and accessible across the ArcGIS platform. Let's now switch back to Pro and check on the results. And here's my resultant layer within Pro, and it resides within my enterprise as well. Now, this time, as I zoom and pan around and navigate around my map, my imagery is stored within the enterprise. It's a persisted data set and processed a couple billion pixels in under 2 minutes. It's stored in its native resolution and at its full extent. I'll now switch back to another slide. So here's an interesting use case with an interesting set of times. Now, let me tell you, this process took me days using the traditional desktop image processing approach. My input data is the entire Penn State watershed area. It's approximately 400 gigabytes and 100 pixels of data. There's an intensive amount of processing, multiple derived data sets. I'm creating a false color composite, segmenting my imagery, classifying my imagery, eventually creating a high-resolution land cover map. My infrastructure, I've used Microsoft Azure, 10 instances, 20 cores each. The result, 100 billion pixels that was processed in 1 hour and 13 minutes, as opposed to days of processing using desktop. All right, I'll switch over to a web application. Now, we have a developer story as well. Raster Analytics has a REST API, enabling developers to build customized, focused, slimmed-down web applications. So like in this case, I have access to the complete NAPE data set as an image service. I can create dynamic products such as a vegetation index or an infrared or color infrared product, or just like what we did at Pro, I can leverage Raster Analytics, and behind the scenes, I can kick off a Raster Analytics product. So I pick my product, specify my settings, specify the input data sets I want to use, provide a large AOI, in this case, and I create my web layer. So this just essentially kicks off Raster Analytics behind the scenes. So the key takeaway, Raster Analytics is an integral component of the enterprise GIS. It's scaled to run, it's scaled to work with large data set, it scales to your organizational needs. One of the key value propositions is time. What used to take days or weeks to run now completes within a matter of hours or minutes. Tasks or processes that were deemed impossible previously, we've now made it possible by the power of Raster Analytics.